So Meta, Facebook, social media, and censorship. This has been a huge topic. Obviously, Meta, Mark Zuckerberg, making this decision, announcing that they were going to suddenly stop censorship, and in that announcement, really admitting to censoring, which I think is probably the most remarkable part of that. When you look at this from a legal perspective and you see that response, what's your take on it?
Yeah. Well, thanks for the question and thanks for having me on. And I want to take you back to the Biden administration at the height of the COVID pandemic. The White House begins privately leaning on social media companies, including Meta, to take down messaging that contradicts the White House's preferred line on COVID, including masks, including vaccinations, including stay-at-home orders. And there was a concerted campaign by individuals within the White House to force off of social media any messages, any voices that contradicted their party line. So we have seen an effort by the left to engage in overt censorship of what they call disinformation, misinformation, and malinformation for years now. Look at what the Treasury Department did, asking financial institutions to track political enemies of the White House. These were incredibly gross abuses of government power. And now that that thumb has been lifted off the scales, that boot has been lifted off the throat of some of these companies, I think what you're seeing is an opportunity for them to come around and recognize that what was happening for the past 4 years was completely at odds with the core values of the First Amendment that protects freedom of speech, freedom of thought, freedom of conscience. We've all been talking about this for years now. Social media really is the new public square. And if it's going to be the new public square, it needs to be a place where free discourse can happen. And I think Mark Zuckerberg gets that. And this announcement that he made shortly after Trump's election validates that. It validates that, I think, in spades.
Yeah, it's interesting, why not realize it earlier and sooner? Why not realize it when it was going on, when people were being punished over asking simple questions on social? That part of it is a little troubling.
Hey, better late than never,
okay,
right?
Fair.
And hey, at ADF, we filed amicus briefs in those cases, pushing back on that effort to engage in censorship. But we still think, and I think this is really a thread that your listeners need to recognize, as global censorship is still a real and in some places growing problem around the globe. It's not going to be ended or defeated simply by a few executive orders. Take the example of Adam Smith Connor over in the UK, an ADF client who was prosecuted by law enforcement in the UK simply for praying silently on a sidewalk outside an abortion clinic in violation of a buffer zone law. He didn't say a word. He stood and prayed silently in his own mind outside an abortion clinic where years before he and his girlfriend had aborted their unborn son. And he was approached by law enforcement, questioned about what he was doing. When he finally copped to saying a prayer inside his mind, a silent prayer in his own mind, he was prosecuted for that. J.D. Vance talked about this in his speech in Munich just a few days ago. And I'm very encouraged by the fact that our vice president is now calling out countries like the UK for violating civil rights in the way that they violated our client Adam Smith Connor's rights. But I'm also trepidatious and I think a little bit nervous the fact that this is still going on in countries like the UK, a country where we inherited many of our freedoms and constitutional liberties from their constitution. So don't say it can't happen here. And even though we're seeing a new wind blowing here in the US, there's always that risk things could revert back, so we've got to be vigilant.
Well, Paavi Räsänen in Finland, and you have these cases that are unbelievable. I mean, you just say to yourself, well, how in the world is this member of parliament up on charges, essentially, and still now fighting a Supreme Court battle in Finland for basically sharing a Bible verse? I mean, that's essentially
right.
What she's guilty of. And, your point is very correct. I think what you just said, the fact that here we are, there's been all this winning on the religious liberty front right now, on the First Amendment front, but it's easy to get complacent in that too and assume, we don't have to worry about it, it's settled. I mean, you're an attorney, you deal with this, it's clearly not settled.
It's not the beginning of the end, it's the end of the beginning. We've now seen a declaration of a course change by the Trump administration, which is critically important. But the hard work is still yet to be done. And look at what blue states are doing even now. As soon as Trump wins election, Gavin Newsom says that he's going to help lead the resistance. The resistance to what? Apparently the resistance to reestablishing freedom of speech, on pushing back against government funding of abortion. And yet look what Gavin Newsom did just last year. He called for the passage of laws that would limit satire, that would limit parody. He saw an ad up on X. It was actually a parody on X that mocked Kamala Harris's announcement of her candidacy using AI, and he called it a deepfake and said, this has to stop. We can't allow for this to happen anymore. Calls on the legislature to pass statutes. They do. And what did the statutes do? Well, they told creators and creatives, if you make a video that uses AI to alter the speech of that video in a way that makes a candidate for political office look bad, you have to slap a label on there saying this is satire and parody. In some cases, those labels were bigger than the frame itself. So we filed a lawsuit against this new law on behalf of the Babylon Bee and on behalf of Rumble, challenging it under the U.S. Constitution. There's nothing more unfunny and unsatirical than a giant warning label saying this is funny and this is satire.
The video has been ruined at that point.
It's been completely ruined, exactly. So we brought that challenge on behalf of the Babylon Bee. So we still are facing efforts to silent voices that dissent from the party line, even here in the United States today. And the Babylon Bee lawsuit is just one of those examples.
You know, outside of the cases that we've discussed, what is a case you really believe right now what people need to be keeping their eyes on?
Well, I'm really excited about a case that we're going to be arguing at the U.S. Supreme Court in April. It's called Drummond. It's a case arising from Oklahoma. Oklahoma has a charter school system, and a Roman Catholic charter school, a Roman Catholic school, applied for entrance to the charter school program and was granted that by the charter school board. And they were very quickly sued on grounds that they couldn't be part of the charter school program in Oklahoma. Why? Because they're religious, and for no other reason, just because they're religious. And unbelievably, that lawsuit succeeded. The Oklahoma Supreme Court upheld the exclusion of this Catholic charter school from Oklahoma's charter school program simply on grounds that it's a religious charter school. So the U.S. Supreme Court granted review in that case, and ADF will be arguing that case in April before the U.S. Supreme Court. And I think it's a very important case because we've seen school choice become an explosive movement all across the country. And if Christian schools, if schools that have a faith basis, like this Roman Catholic charter school in Oklahoma, can access that school choice, that's going to be a game changer.
In order for that, so let me ask the question because the critics will ask this. In order for that to be legal, would you have to be open to any religion then that wants to open a charter school? How does that part of the equation work?
Sure. I mean, absolutely. If there's a Muslim school that wants to join the charter school program, they would have the ability to be considered as well. But that doesn't change the principle, which is there should be freedom of choice and free exercise of religion. The free exercise clause applies to all. It's not just for the Christian faith. It's for everyone. Everyone has the right.
People can choose. If you want to send your kid to the Muslim charter school, you do it. The Christian one, you do it. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Well, very good. That's an important case, and we appreciate you breaking it all down today and joining us today.
My pleasure. Happy to do it anytime.
Thank you.
You bet.